The air inside the locker room smelled like old paint, bleach and bravado, the kind that drips off young soldiers who've never actually bled in battle. Master Chief Evelyn Maddox stood motionless, calm as the desert wind, while Major Lucas Hartley closed the distance with fists clenched and jaw tight. His anger came in waves, loud, unfounded, and desperate. Evelyn didn't flinch, didn't blink. She'd been in rooms like this before, rooms filled with men too eager to prove themselves against someone they didn't understand. The camera in the corner standard-issue Panasonic was already recording, red light blinking, evidence stacking. Evelyn's heart rate remained at 60 beats per minute, same as it had been during a halo jump into northern Syria, same as it had been when she pulled her husband's flag-draped coffin from a cargo plane in Delaware. This wasn't fear. This wasn't surprise. This was calculation. Captain Finn Reynolds stood awkwardly in the corner, eyes darting between the camera and the door. Sergeant Connor James had his arms crossed. Unreadable. They had no idea who they were looking at. No idea the woman they thought was just a Navy tech had 191 confirmed kills and a name whispered across continents. Before we continue, drop a comment where in the world are you watching from. We'd love to see how far this story reaches. And don't forget to hit subscribe, because this story is just getting started. The locker room echoed with every heavy footstep as Major Lucas Hartley stepped closer, eyes burning with the kind of anger that comes from ignorance and pride. "You don't belong here," he spat, voice thick with contempt. "This is an army post, not a retirement village for washed-up sailors." Master Chief Evelyn Maddox kept folding her PT shirt with meticulous care. She didn't respond. That only made him angrier. Behind him, Captain Finn Reynolds hovered with nervous energy, his gaze flicking to the red-lit camera in the corner. He knew this was going sideways. Fast. Sergeant Connor James leaned against the wall, arms crossed, pretending indifference, but his posture betrayed anticipation. Hartley shoved Evelyn hard. The thud of her body against the metal lockers cut through the room like a gunshot. The others flinched. Evelyn didn't. She slowly adjusted her collar, as if brushing off lint, not assault. "You done?" she asked calmly, eyes steady. But Hartley wasn't. "You're a damn ghost," he snarled. "No one knows what you do. You're a checkmark for Navy diversity and nothing more." Evelyn's heart rate, still 60 beats per minute. She could hear his breathing grow faster. She could see the vein in his temple throbbing. And then he lunged, his hand clamped around her throat. Textbook chokehold, thumbs to the trachea, pressure applied with precision, enough to cut airflow, enough to show dominance. What he didn't realize, he wasn't the first man to try that. He also wasn't going to be the last one to regret it. Evelyn's left hand rose gently to his elbow. Not in panic, but with the grace of muscle memory. Her right hand slid along his forearm, fingers finding the radial nerve. She pressed. Hard. Pain shot through Hartley's arm like lightning. His grip faltered for a split second long enough. Evelyn shifted her hips 17 degrees, used his own momentum against him. He hit the lockers with a clang that seemed to freeze time. Reynolds' mouth opened slightly. Connor stood still, too still. Total time 2.3 seconds. No drama, no extra moves, just precision. The kind of efficiency that doesn't come from training, it comes from surviving. Evelyn picked up her duffel, slung it over her shoulder, and walked out. Not a single word. Behind her, the silence was deafening. Hartley sat on the floor, gasping, staring at the wall he'd just bounced off. Confusion battled rage across his face. She attacked me, he stammered. No, Reynolds whispered, barely audible. That wasn't an attack. That was professional. Connor finally moved. "What about the camera?" Hartley's face twisted. "It's 3 of us against 1. They'll believe us." But he didn't sound so sure anymore. And neither did anyone else in that room. The next morning, the rumors had already spread like wildfire. By Oro 600 half, the base knew something had gone down in locker room Bravo 6. The versions varied. Some said she screamed. Others said Hartley had to fight her off. The loudest stories painted Evelyn as unstable a woman past her prime, cracking under pressure. Evelyn sat at her usual spot in the chow hall, alone, corner table, back to the wall, oatmeal cooling in front of her. 3 tables over, the whispers continued. "She went nuts. I heard she decked him. She's gonna get discharged. Navy won't want this going public." Evelyn took another bite of oatmeal, another sip of black coffee. Heart rate 59 beats per minute. Across the room. Reynolds sat with his tray untouched, staring at nothing. He hadn't joined the rumors. But he hadn't stopped them either. Guilt had a face. And Evelyn recognized it. By noon, the official email landed in her inbox. Subject: formal inquiry. Allegation of assault body Master Chief Maddox. A complaint has been filed against you regarding an incident on base. Report to the JAG office at 1400 for an interview. A written statement is required within 24 hours. She read it once, calmly. Then she opened her own report already filed the night before. Timestamp 17:10 Zulu. 27 minutes after the incident. 19 hours before Hartley's claim. She had followed protocol. She had reported the facts. No emotion, just detail, just truth. She added one line before forwarding it to JAG. My statement was filed prior to Major Hartley's. All relevant information is included. I have nothing further to add. Then she returned to work. No drama, no outrage, no fear. Because when you've spent your life in the shadows, doing things no one talks about, you don't get rattled by boys trying to play war. The hallway outside the JAG office felt colder than the Mojave sun should have allowed. Master Chief Evelyn Maddox stood before a nondescript door marked Domonadu. Cole, James Hartley, Judge Advocate, her service uniform flawless, her posture effortless. She knocked once, firm, controlled. Enter! The man behind the desk looked up, glasses sliding down the bridge of his nose, papers spread like shrapnel across his desk. He was younger than most JAGs Evelyn had dealt with, late 40s maybe, but his eyes were old. The kind of old that comes from seeing justice fail one too many times. Master Chief Maddox, he said, motioning to the seat across from him. Have a seat. She sat, back straight. Silence her armor. I've read both statements. He began. Yours was filed at 1710 yesterday. Major Hartley's came in at 8:20 this morning. That's a 19-hour discrepancy. Yes, sir. Why report so early? Because that's when it happened. Sir, and the UCMJ requires all assaults be reported immediately. Hartley leaned back, tapping his pen slowly. You're saying Major Hartley physically assaulted you unprovoked? I'm not saying anything. Sir, I documented the facts. His hand was around my throat. I couldn't breathe. That qualifies as aggravated assault under Article 128. His eyes narrowed slightly, almost impressed. You seem very well versed in military law. I've had to be. There was a pause. A moment of silent calculation passed between them. Hartley leaned forward. There's a camera in that room. Correct? Yes, sir. Northeast corner. Red light was active. Model's a Panasonic M305. Footage should be stored on the NK-DVR07 server. The JAG blinked. You remember the exact model? Yes. Sir. I catalog every surveillance system in any facility I'm assigned to. Standard protocol. Another pause. Then he said, quietly, I've reviewed the footage. Evelyn didn't move. She didn't ask what he saw. She already knew. I'm not here to determine guilt, he said slowly. Not yet. But I am here to assess whether this incident merits criminal charges. Yes, sir. He studied her for a long moment. Master Chief, your service record is the most redacted document I've seen in 15 years. Every operation, every deployment, it's black ink on black paper. Evelyn didn't answer. What were you really doing for the Navy? She held his gaze. My orders say technical advisor, sir. And your orders are lying, he muttered. Another pause. Then, softer. Almost reluctant, I believe you. Master Chief? But belief isn't enough. I need facts. Evidence. You have the footage. Yes, but they have 3 witnesses. At that moment, a knock interrupted them. The door creaked open. Captain Finn Reynolds stepped in, his face pale, eyes sunken like he hadn't slept in days. Sir, he said, voice trembling, I need to amend my statement. The room froze. Hartley blinked. Excuse me. I lied. Reynolds said, we all did. Maddox didn't attack anyone. Major Hartley choked her. We watched, we panicked, and we lied. The silence was heavier than stone. Hartley leaned back. Slowly. Why are you coming forward now? Reynolds swallowed hard. Because during the dive exercise this morning, my rebreather failed. I was drowning. I couldn't breathe. Everyone froze except her. After what we did to her, she still came for me, shared her air, saved my life. He looked at Evelyn, shame painted across his face. She had every reason to leave me down there, and she didn't. That's not someone unstable. That's someone better than all of us. Hartley stared at him for a long, long moment. Then he nodded. Your amended statement is on the record. Reynolds saluted and left. Evelyn remained seated, still calm. But something shifted behind her eyes, something sad and deeply human. I'll request formal review of the camera footage, Hartley said, and I'll ensure the timeline is documented accurately. She stood. Thank you, sir. He watched her go, and when the door closed, he whispered to himself, You don't choke the ghost that's carried more bodies home than you'll ever count. The dive facility was quiet now. The echo of splashes, the barking of instructors, the roar of applause from earlier, all of it had faded. Major Lucas Hartley sat alone on the edge of the pool deck, staring into still water that no longer reflected the man he thought he was. He had spent the last hour trying to make sense of what happened. That wasn't just skill. That wasn't just luck. That was discipline forged in blood, in places no one talks about unless they were there. He'd mocked her, shoved her, put his hands around her throat, and she'd dismantled him like a child having a tantrum. Then, she saved his teammate, the one who had lied for him. He hadn't just misjudged her. He'd waged war on someone who lived it. Across base, in a small office lit by a desk lamp and the blue glow of a screen, Lieutenant Colonel James Hartley, no relation, was staring at Evelyn Maddox's personnel file. Or what was left of it. Redacted, redacted, redacted. Lines blacked out like scars. Missions with no names. Locations with no maps. But what wasn't redacted was enough to steal his breath. Unit Naval Special Warfare Development Group. Call sign Widow Deployments. 42 countries kills confirmed 109. And he won awards. Silver Star, Bronze Stars, Purple Hearts. She wasn't just a SEAL, she was one of them. DevGru, the tip of the spear, the shadow behind the enemy's last breath. And she'd been called a diversity hire by a man who couldn't finish her warm-up drill without choking on his ego. James leaned back in his chair, hand to his mouth, stunned. Back at the barracks. Evelyn sat on the edge of her bunk, staring at her notebook, leather-bound, worn. Inside the cover were small notches, one for every soul she'd taken in combat, 191 in total. She didn't count them out of pride. She counted them so she'd never forget what they cost. Every one of them had a name, a life, a mother, a future that never happened. And now, somehow, the one that haunted her most wasn't the man she couldn't save. It was the son who never knew. 20 years ago, she dragged Colonel Dean Hartley Lucas's father across 200 meters of open terrain under enemy fire, trying to save his life. She held his hand as he died, whispering a promise she'd never been able to keep. "I'll tell him. I'll find your boy. I'll let him know you were proud." But she never did, because it hurt too much, because life kept moving, because no one told Lucas who she really was. Now he stood on the same sand, in the same uniform, throwing the same fists his father had once clenched in battle. And he had no idea. That night, Evelyn walked the perimeter. Not for duty, for peace. The desert air was cold now, the sky above scattered with stars that burned indifferent to all things human. She paused near the watchtower. He was there. Lucas, alone. He turned when he heard her steps. His face was unreadable, his voice quiet. "I don't know who you are." Evelyn looked at him a long moment. "I was the last person to see your father alive." The words hung in the silence like a shot. "What?" "March 21st, 2003. Iraq, Basra outskirts. Your father was hit by mortar fire. I tried to save him. I held his hand in the helicopter. He told me to tell you he was proud." Lucas didn't speak. Couldn't. His knees buckled slightly. He sat on the concrete. "I was 17, he whispered. "I got the letter, but it didn't say any of that. I didn't know." Evelyn sat beside him. Not close. Just enough. "I couldn't bring myself to reach out," she said. "Too much guilt. Too many ghosts. But I never forgot. I promised him I'd tell you. Now I have." He looked at her, eyes swimming. "Why did you save Reynolds after what we did to you?" She didn't answer right away. Then she said, simply, "Because someone once saved me, when I didn't deserve it either." The next morning, Major Lucas Hartley stood in front of his mirror, uniform pressed, boots shining, chest tight with something he hadn't felt in years. Shame. Not the kind that passes, the kind that claws at you when the truth finally crashes through the walls you built to protect your pride. He had reviewed the footage, the full clip, the choke, the calm warning, the 2.3 seconds that flipped the narrative. And there she was, Master Chief Evelyn Maddox folding her shirt with quiet precision while he showed the worst version of himself. He couldn't erase it, but maybe he could answer for it. At 0800 the captain's mast was held in the command briefing room. No uniforms were allowed to be half-worn today. No distractions, no excuses, just truth, laid bare. Brigadier General Robert Matheson presided over the hearing, flanked by JAG Officer Latour Cole, James Hartley, and the ever-stoic Command Sergeant Major Frank Hayes, a living legend in his own right. On one side sat Lucas, flanked by Captain Reynolds and Sergeant James, the two men who had backed his story, then nearly drowned in its consequences. Across from them sat Evelyn, service dress blues, expression calm, heart rate probably 58. What happened over the next hour could only be described as surgical justice. The security footage was shown twice, once without sound, where her body language spoke louder than words, then with audio, where her warning, "There's a camera," Major, sounded almost merciful now. Then came the performance data from the dive. Evelyn's time 9 minutes and 47 seconds. Hartley's 16 minutes 54. He'd used 91% of his air. She used 31%. And she'd stopped halfway to save a man who lied about her. Every number told the same story. She wasn't equal. She was exceptional. Then came the personnel file, unsealed by special order. Even with most of it redacted, it read like Myth DevGru Operator. Call sign Widow, 191 confirmed kills, 42 deployments, silver stars, bronze stars, 2 purple hearts. She wasn't just someone. She was the standard. When it was Lucas's turn to speak, he didn't read a prepared statement. He stood, shoulders squared, voice steady. I misjudged her. I made assumptions based on pride and ignorance. And I attacked someone I didn't understand, someone who didn't deserve it. He looked directly at Evelyn. I disrespected your service, your sacrifice, your humanity. I can't take that back, but I can own it. Then he turned to the general. I request reduction in rank to captain, and I request immediate deployment to wherever the military needs someone who understands the cost of arrogance and the value of quiet leadership. General Matheson studied him. Hard. Then nodded. Request granted. You leave in 30 days? Make it count. Captain. Outside the hearing room, Evelyn stood near the flagpole, watching it ripple against the sky. Lucas approached, slower this time. Not with challenge, but recognition. Why didn't you ruin me? He asked. Evelyn didn't look at him. Because I've already buried enough good men. He swallowed. I didn't feel like a good man this week. She turned to him now, eyes softer. Neither did I. The difference is what we choose to do next. He nodded, then hesitated. My dad. You really held his hand. Yes. Did he suffer? She paused. Not for effect, but to be kind with the truth. He hurt, but he wasn't afraid. He talked about you, said you were stubborn, said he hoped you'd be better than him. Lucas looked away, blinking back the sting. I haven't been. Not yet, she said, but you've got time. Back in her quarters, Evelyn opened her notebook. She flipped to the back page. The notches were still there, 191 of them. She added one more. Not for a kill, not for a mission, for a moment where she chose mercy over vengeance and gave someone a chance to change. That counted, too. 3 weeks later, the desert had cooled. But inside the secure tech building at Outpost Ridgewater, things were just heating up. First Lieutenant Finn Reynolds sat stiffly at the corner of the long work table, staring at code he didn't understand, and reports he wasn't sure how to write. Across from him, Master Chief Evelyn Maddox didn't speak. She didn't correct him when he made small mistakes. She didn't berate him when he asked the same question twice. She simply expected him to rise. Because she wasn't here to punish, she was here to pass it on. The new assignment came down from Command Effective immediately. Latotu. Reynolds is to serve under Master Chief Maddox's team for hands-on systems integrity and threat simulation training. Translation. You lied about her. Now you're going to learn from her. At first, it was awkward, silent, cold. Reynolds walked on eggshells. Evelyn walked with purpose. She didn't explain how she knew so much, didn't name-drop the missions, didn't once remind him what she'd done for him. But she showed him every day. At 0430 sharp, they ran the 6-mile perimeter together. She never said keep up, she just didn't slow down. And he did, every day, a little faster, a little stronger. At 0700 in the chow hall, he stopped sitting with the boys who used to joke about her. He sat beside her now, silent, respectful. And every night, as they packed up their gear, she left him with just one sentence. Try again tomorrow. By week 4, something changed. Reynolds stopped asking about clearance levels and started asking about discipline. How do you not lose control? He asked one night. After drills, after failures, after seeing her outpace an entire unit in ruck training, Evelyn paused, thought, then answered. Because rage is expensive. Every time you indulge it, someone else pays the cost. He looked at her like she'd just explained war itself. And maybe she had. On a Friday, just past 2100 hours, Evelyn found a note taped to her door. Master Chief, they don't whisper anymore. They salute. Or, she didn't smile, but she stood a little straighter. Because that was growth, not his. Hers. She had spent a lifetime eliminating threats. Now, for the first time, she was shaping warriors. Across the base, Captain Lucas Hartley was preparing for deployment. Afghanistan, a unit that needed a leader, a place where arrogance got people killed. He requested one final conversation. Evelyn agreed. They met under the stars, at the edge of the motor pool, quiet, far from the buzz. I wanted to hate you, he admitted. Evelyn tilted her head. Why? Because you reminded me that everything I thought I'd earned, I hadn't. She nodded, humbling hurts. Lucas looked down. You ever been wrong? Her answer was immediate. Yes, often, but never about the mission. He swallowed hard. And what is the mission now? Evelyn's voice softened. To get them home. All of them. Even the ones who don't deserve it yet. He nodded slowly. I'll do better. I know. Later that night, back in her quarters, Evelyn opened her notebook. She didn't add a new notch this time. Instead, she flipped to the back and wrote one word in bold, unshaking letters. Redemption. Then she closed the cover. The war she'd fought in deserts and jungles had ended. But the mission, the real mission, had just begun. Not to kill, not to conquer, but to teach men like Reynolds and Hartley how to carry the weight of leadership without letting it break them. The desert wind whispered low across Outpost Ridgewater as Master Chief Evelyn Maddox folded her final uniform. One more week, and she'd be gone. 18 months. That was the agreement. One last assignment. No deployments, no war, just technical advising. A quiet exit for someone who had spent 2 decades living loud in silence. But it hadn't been quiet, had it? She came to fade away. Instead, she had stood up again, faced betrayal, ignorance, fear, and turned it into something useful. Now her bunk was bare. Her gear, boxed. The walls, once covered in mission schedules and map grids, were empty. Except for the shelf, there, side by side. A photo of Jake Maddox, smiling in dress blues. Her daughter Sadie's graduation letter from West Point. And a black-bound notebook, leather worn soft with time. Inside were 192 notches now. 191 had been for confirmed kills. The last was different. That one was for Captain Lucas Hartley, not for the day she dropped him with a pressure point reversal, but for the day he wrote to her from Kabul. Team intact. Everyone home. You showed me how. Thank you. L.H. The ceremony was held under the harsh mid-morning sun. No banners, no speeches, just the essentials. A flag, a line of soldiers standing straight, and Evelyn, standing in dress blues for the 6th and final time. Brigadier General Matheson pinned a ribbon to her chest. The Navy Cross, the one they should have given her in 2015, the one that had collected dust in a folder marked denied for 8 years. Better late than never, the general muttered. Evelyn simply nodded. Yes, sir. Beside her, Command Sergeant Major Frank Hayes waited with something wrapped in a cloth. He handed it over gently, like passing a folded flag. She opened it. A patch, black circle, silver phoenix, Latin inscription embroidered in red fidelis in silentio, faithful in silence. Red Squadron, DevGru. Her family, her ghosts, her origin, and still her mission. She took it in her hand. Firm. For the first time in years. She allowed herself to feel it. She'd earned her rest. That night, a familiar knock came at her door. Sadie Maddox, 20 sharp-eyed and smiling like her father, stood in civilian clothes. "Holiday Liberty," she said, holding up a duffel. "Figured I'd spend it where legends live." Evelyn laughed a rare, unguarded sound. "Legend? Huh, I just fix radio towers and intimidate junior officers." Sadie stepped in, glanced around. "It's smaller than I expected." "It always is," Evelyn replied. They stayed up late, sitting cross-legged on the floor, sharing stories that had gone unspoken for too long. Sadie told her about West Point, the pressure, the moments she almost quit. Evelyn told her about Jake, the nights she cried after deployments, the dreams she still had, the lives she remembered. And when the room went quiet, Evelyn reached under her bunk and pulled out a blade wrapped in old cloth. Jake's combat knife, still sharp, still stained with the weight of history. She handed it to Sadie. "This saved your dad's life. Twice." Sadie took it carefully. "And now it's mine." "It is, because you carry the mission forward, not in war, necessarily, but in how you lead, how you protect, how you choose to show strength." Sadie looked down at the blade, the etching worn but legible "Get everyone home." "I'm scared. Mom." Evelyn smiled. "Good. The day you're not scared is the day you stop caring." The next morning, Evelyn stepped into the sunrise with nothing but a duffel bag, her notebook, and peace. Not peace the world gave her, peace she earned. Every scar, every lesson, every ounce of mercy measured and carried with grace. She didn't walk out as a warrior. She walked out as a teacher, a mother, a quiet legend. And as the gate closed behind her, one phrase whispered across the silence. Mission complete. True strength isn't loud. It's steady, measured, relentless. Master Chief Evelyn Maddox didn't throw punches to prove herself. She stood tall, listened carefully, struck only when necessary and only with purpose. She had nothing to prove, and that terrified the ones who had everything to hide. Her story reminds us that legacy isn't built in battlefields alone. It's built in the quiet moments when you choose patience over pride, mercy over revenge, discipline over dominance. The world may not always clap for people like Evelyn, but the ones who matter are those who watch, those who learn, those who carry the mission forward they remember. And in the end, that's what strength really is. Not who shouts the loudest, but who shows up, does the work, and brings others home. If this story moved you, hit subscribe and tap the bell so you don't miss what's next. Share it with someone who needs a little strength today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next story.